It's a nice rainy day outside in Newton, Massachusetts. Very cool weather, and that's something I like. It's not too cold to the point where I have to wear a jacket. Hits that sweet spot, which is really nice. I want to give an update on how my training has been. I don't know if I've said it before in previous videos, but I recently graduated nursing school a couple of months ago, and I got a nursing job in the operating theater as a surgical nurse at Beth Mount Auburn Hospital in Cambridge, Massachusetts. That's where I'm currently doing my training. I'm about a month into training so far, and currently I've just been circulating and scrubbing. That's the roles both of the nurses do at the hospital there. When you're circulating, you're mostly doing a managerial position. You're introducing the patient into the operating room. You're documenting about the surgery, what's been going on so far, and you're also getting supplies for the surgical team. And then they also train you to scrub, which is, as it sounds like, you're literally scrubbed into the surgery with the surgical team, and you are assisting in the surgeries. The training itself is about 4 to 6 months. I've heard from about the nurse preceptors saying that it would take realistically about a year. Nursing school doesn't teach you a good job at all about the operating theater, and they don't really try to convince students in nursing school to go to the operating theater. In my experience, nursing school really tried to teach you how to go to the floor, whether there was the med-surg unit, the emergency unit, the intensive care unit, but never the operating theater. So it's a completely brand new training process. I'm learning about instrumentations, about technologies, about equipment, about wires. Sometimes I feel like what I'm doing is more of a networking role than it is a clinical and medical role. Many would be surprised to know that in the operating theater, nurses don't use any clinical judgment at all with patients. It's really the doctors and the surgical team that does it. One thing I've noticed in my training so far is the specific people at the hospital and within the greater Boston area. And when I was in North Carolina, everybody liked talking about being very open, very chillaxed, talking endless on stories, being very polite, and sugarcoating a lot of the stuff if there was anything wrong. And they really wouldn't try to bring it up in conversation. In the New England area, especially in the Boston area, the culture is very different. Both nurses and doctors that I'm doing my training at the hospital at, they're very direct. They don't like small talk. They see that as something that's very rude and a waste of their time. And it's a very hustle culture too. So the environment itself is different than in North Carolina, where it was much more laid back, more casual. Something I like about my training in comparison to the other specialties I did my rotations in, it is very interprofessional, and you're able to see a lot of different healthcare professionals and team members collaborate and give the best care they can to patients. That's something that when I was in my training in nursing school, I didn't really see that in other specialties. They would generally segregate each of the healthcare professions to their own department or their own units, and you would occasionally come across other professionals who would be actively giving healthcare and care to patients. So it's something that I really genuinely like, as well as the vibe. The OR, to my surprise, has been a place where people are always just complaining and about issues going on. They'll tell some inside jokes. Surprisingly, a lot of the people tell their personal stories and a lot about the politics, as well as what they had for dinner. And they also play along with each other. They slay each other or slander each other, but in a very joking way. This hospital I'm at, most of the people that are at the hospital as nurses and doctors, they have about decades of experience. And the people that are in my age, roughly around my age, are very new to the hospital program, or they're training themselves either in a medical residency or a nurse training program. So that is something that's caught off guard. It's not all honey and roses. There is some downsides to the operating theater. One of the things, like I said before, was nurses don't use any clinical judgment at all. I talked to one of my friends who himself is a nurse in the med-surg unit. We both graduated in the same cohort in the same nursing school, and he's been telling me how much of my license do I actually use when it comes to clinical practice in the operating theater. And I told him, none. We don't use anything we learn in nursing school in the operating theater because that's all done by the surgeons, the anesthesiologists, and the other physician led teams. One thing I don't really enjoy about the training so far is I'm not really able to use a lot of the clinical skills I've learned about pathophysiology and disease treatment in the operating theater. I also can't suture, although I taught myself those techniques. You would have to get further training, which would be a couple years down the road. The people there at the hospital, generally speaking, it's a very supportive environment. Again, none of the nurses there really know anything about basic medications or pathophysiology or surgical interventions like other nurses would in other units, such as the intensive care unit, the emergency department, the med surg floor, and in other medical specialties, which is kind of unfortunate. The only way for me to really be at that level would be to get further education in medical school. So that is something I'm kind of looking forward into right now for the future. The other thing, and this is not just a personal thing, I think this is a whole system issue. Healthcare has a lot of type A people in the hospital, and it can become very difficult at times to have a good social support system. Most of the people at my hospital, they're not even within my age range. They already have grandkids, or they're already parents whose kids are my age. Most of them, they're not very social outside of the hospital, and it's really hard as a new grad going into a new unit to really have that social support. When I was in North Carolina in my nursing school there, I had support from the students in my cohort because they were all going through the same things I was, as well as some of the instructors and professors I met. Here, unfortunately, it's more or less just about waking up, getting ready, going to the hospital, doing what I need to do, coming back, maybe visiting family at the end of the day, and then repeating it all over again. It's routine. And I'm not saying that I don't enjoy the fact that I do have family within the area that I can go to. That's great. But unfortunately, I don't want to be with family all the time. Family has its own issues. My grandparents, specifically my grandfather, doesn't like me having around visiting him all the time. It's hard on my uncle too because he also has to care for not only his family, but also when I'm in the house, he's responsible for making sure everything runs smoothly. There is some good news to it though. I did meet a resident a few weeks ago. She was doing a rotation in the operating theater at the hospital, and she was interested to know more about me and kind of my transition, my journey to Massachusetts from North Carolina. And I kind of told her that it's really difficult to make friends here and have a social life outside of your professional life. And she invited me to a brunch probably over that coming weekend. It may not be possible though because of the call requirements she has, because she is a resident and she does have weekend call. Maybe in the future of this kind of issue, this problem I've been seeing about not having a social life, how that might be better. So that's really it for now in terms of the updates. I'll send updates later on, hopefully in the coming week. And for now, to summarize, I really enjoy the environment here. It's different expectations, different responsibilities, and different scopes of practice for a nurse here. There's a lot of things I like about the operating theater that I want to know clinically wise and surgical wise and medical wise. For that, I'll have to get further education and training, and that's something I'm looking forward to doing in about a year or two. And again, with the social life, it's hard to make friends and have a community here, but that might change next week, so we'll take a look into it. If you were able to listen all the way at the end, I really do appreciate you being able to listen to what I have to say. I will keep you updated, and for the time being, you take care and stay healthy. Cheers.